Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome back to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is Talking Heads, where we bring world-class experts to bring their expertise, experience, and knowledge to you in a 30-minute lesson. I am thrilled to welcome my own personal and business coach, Mariska du Preez, to the platform. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
I am so happy to be here with you.
I'm happy to be here with you as well, and I'm looking forward to your lesson today. I'm going to put up your deck and let you run the show. Have a good one.
Thank you. Well, for our Talking Heads lesson for today, we are looking at body language. So in body language, this is part of our Welcome to Being Awesome Communicators series, and I am Mariska du Preez, as Dr. Jacqueline mentioned. I'm an engineer turned leadership coach, and I'm going to take you through this material today. So for today, we're looking at body language, and I have a question for you to start us off with. Do we express body language the same way, no matter who we are, where we're from, or how we look like? Is the answer A, yes, B, no, or C, it depends? Well, the answer is a bit of a combination between A, yes, and C, it depends. So what research has found is that in general, for all human beings on this planet, we express our emotions similarly in our body language. So when we are feeling elated or happy, then we will express it the same. When we are feeling angry or upset, we will express that emotion the same. In different areas on our wonderful globe and in different communities, we might experience these emotions a little bit differently. Our context might be different. So that area of it would be in the depend box. But in general, the way that we express our emotions through our body language is globally same thing for everyone. So knowing this, they went and they did some research on athletes during the Olympic Games. So as you might notice on our wee little slide here, we have two athletes, and I'm not sure whether you can guess the emotion. If you can guess the emotion and it was disappointment, you would be correct. These athletes didn't do quite as well as they expected or wanted to, and we see here a universal expression of disappointment. Then our next slide, of course, that is what all of us want when we are competing in anything, especially, I'm sure, all the athletes competing at the Olympic Games. And here we can see that universally, when we are really excited and we got to where we wanted to be, the gesture is hands in the air and we're winning. So doesn't matter where we're from, when we get excited, we will show this. In the studies that they did on the athletes, they also had a look at athletes that were blind. So here they took them into two categories. So those individuals that were blind from birth, so they couldn't see to start off with, and then those individuals that lost their sight due to some event that happened throughout their life, an illness or something that might have taken their sight from them. So what they observed is even athletes that were never able to see anyone else go through a win and have this expression of winning actually displayed exactly the same body motions, right? We do this automatically. So that was a very interesting study to show that it's not only the things that we see around us, but there's a little bit of this is actually built into our system. And of course, they didn't only look at body language, they also went and they looked at facial expressions and a little bit further into what is called micro facial expressions. So when we think about facial expressions in general, like we can see on the slide, it's quite easy to see when they're happy, they're smiling, they're bright, they're elated. Now, when we think about micro facial expressions, I have another question for you. How long does a micro expression last, would you say? Is it A, 1 to 2 seconds? Is it B, 1/100th of a second? Or is it C, half a second to about a 15th of a second? If you chose C, you would be correct. So micro expressions is really fleeting, and we don't always pick up on them because they are so fast. They sort of show up and go away. If we're really angry, we won't necessarily be able to hide it. It's going to show on our face, literally. If we want to hide the expression, so maybe we feel ashamed, we do feel angry, but we don't want the other person to know about it, that would go into the micro expressions. Or even if we start doubting somebody, it goes into micro expressions, right? So we will show it, but it only shows up for a very, very short period of time. So I have 2 examples for us today. And the one, as you guys can see, this is more or less the same expression. The one is a little bit more intense in its intensity than the other. And the expression is anger. So with anger, the things that we normally look at, if you don't get the full volume shouting, on the face would be firstly the eyebrows that actually pull together at the top. So you can see there that the eyebrows sort of pull towards the middle. The second one is the eyes glare. Now, when we're shouting, normally we have a tendency to start closing our eyes. We pull them into very, very fine slits. But when we're not shouting, we just have an angry expression on our face, our eyes glare. And then lastly, of course, is the narrowing of the lips. Of course, when you're shouting, you narrow your lips automatically because you open your mouth out quite wide. But when you don't shout, your lips actually pulls into quite a narrow position. So that's the one. And then the second one is joy. So when we are happy, of course, there's two ways of thinking about joy. We can really be authentically happy and smiling. And this is what this slide will be demonstrating. And then, of course, if we say we're happy, is a little bit like we say we're fine, right? We know the person isn't fine, although they're saying the words, they're fine. Or I'm so happy for you, but you're not really happy, right? So the way to see that a person is really happy and they're really smiling is there's 3 main places to have a look. The first is the wrinkles at your eyes. So if you're really, really smiling, your eyes will have those wee little wrinkles at the side. The second place is your upper cheek muscles. So they actually scrunch up, right? So they go up towards your eyes and your ears. So those muscles are definitely engaged when we're smiling. And then, of course, the corners of our lips. So when we're smiling, and it's not just a fake smile, the corners of our lips actually move an equal amount. If it's a fake smile, we have a tendency to have it a little bit skewed. So the corners of our mouth will actually move the same amount. And that is how you know when this person is really smiling authentically or whether they just sort of smiling to put up a brave face or to feel like they might be appeasing someone. Then next is gestures. Now, we looked at body language in general. So there's the big body language things that comes through. Like when we're winning, we will take up a lot of space. So we will actually broaden ourselves quite a lot and our arms even go out, right? So that is to take up more space. When, of course, we're disappointed or we lost, we will tend to crunch ourselves in and take up less space that way because we don't necessarily want to be seen at that point. Now, when we look at body language, another element of body language is our gestures. So this is all the things that we do with our hands. And when we think about gestures, I want you to think about what types of gestures do you think we use? So do we use speech illustrators? Do we use emblems? Do we use jazz hands? Or do we mostly use speech illustrators and emblems? If your answer is D, speech illustrators and emblems, you would be correct. Jazz hands we do, but only when we actually need to do jazz hands. Right. It's normally not in our everyday speech that we use that. So emblems would be stuff, for instance, like a thumbs up. Now, thumbs up is an emblem because in different areas, it has different meanings. For instance, if you're diving and you show a thumbs up, it doesn't mean that you are okay. It actually means that you want to go up. Whereas in other areas, thumbs up might mean that you are okay. So when we think about emblems, these are signs that we have allocated with our hands that has some word or meaning attached to it. Now, when we use emblems, we need to be really careful in their use because for different cultures, different situations, different environments, emblems has evolved differently. It's similar to words. So we as humans use our words differently depending on the language we speak or where we come from. And this is the same with the emblem. So emblems normally are used in different ways depending on where we come from and our background. So they need to be used with a little bit of care and make sure that whatever emblem it is that you might be using is understood the same way as the people that is around you, because otherwise you might actually miscommunicate something quite severely. The next one is our speech indicators. So like Garfield is showing us here, a wave is a universal speech indicator for hello. or goodbye. But normally we use it when we say hello. So speech indicators are any type of hand gestures that we utilize to underline words or to make our explanation of things a little easier. If we, for instance, have two different subjects that we're discussing, we might indicate it with our hands as two different subjects. And when we're discussing this subject, we indicate with this hand. And when we are discussing the other subject, we might indicate with the other hand. Speech indicators might also be something such as when we indicate numbers. So if we are speaking about 3 items, we will indicate the number 3. If, of course, we don't know our material and we say that we have 3 things to discuss today, and I showed 5 on my hand, there's a bit of a dissonance. And immediately, the people that look at us will sort of go, so you said 3, but you showed 5. So what is it? Is it 3 or is it 5? So making sure that what we are talking about and what we're actually showing with our hands are the same. This is where speech indicators come in. Of course, again, depending on the environment where you are at, this might change. So some places we have loads of speech indicators and we use big gestures. So other areas, of course, you have fewer speech indicators. So you might only indicate with important points or very slight gestures, and they might be a little bit more muted. So it might be smaller in the frequency and in the size of gesturing. So taking those things into account also when you are interacting with different people. And this is a really good and easy way to just see how people around us are interacting and how they like to use these in order for us to be able to adjust ourselves to do the same. So that brings us to our next slide. And this is doing our little audit. So when we do our little audit, what I have on our table here is thinking in the different areas where we might be interacting and where our communication will take place within maybe the next week. Right. So I might be doing a presentation to the board or to some of my colleagues, or I might even do a presentation to a prospective client. So thinking about that interaction and thinking about the body language. So this might differ depending on how we are presenting. If it is an online presentation, as we are doing at the moment, the person will see us, but we might not see the other person or people that we are presenting to. If we are more in a one-to-one or face-to-face type of interaction, we will have a boardroom filled with individuals or a hall or wherever it might be that we are doing our presentation. So when we can see our audience and the people that we are presenting to, how might they be positioning themselves? So how are they sitting? If they are standing, how are they standing? And taking into consideration also our presentation length and the position that the people will be taking during that period. So if we have a fairly long presentation, preferably we want to make sure that the people can be seated and they can be comfortable. Because if we are comfortable, it's easier for us to pay attention. In our body language, also having a look while we are doing the presentation, what's going on for our audience? Are they getting fidgety? Are they restless? Are they nodding off? So are they getting really sleepy? Being aware of all these things, if it's just one person versus if it's half the room, will also give you a good indication of how you are actually bringing your content across. And then, how am I standing? How am I showing up? Am I showing up and taking up the space that I have available to me? Or am I showing up more like a person that feels disappointment after losing a race and taking up very little space? So taking those things into consideration even for ourselves and our own body language. Then facial expressions, what are we seeing and what do we need to look for? So in this table, one of the things that I want us to look at is our intentionality. So what do we want to look for? And when we see that, what are we going to do in order for us to change that behavior from our audience? So say, for instance, we see that our audience are starting to nod off, right? It might be that we are doing the presentation just after lunch. And even if the presentation is just after lunch, it's still, the onus is still on us to ensure that the material is at least so engaging that most people will stay awake. So this might include a little quiz or an activity to just get the blood flowing again and get people to wake up. So looking at those facial expressions and having some things in our back pocket to ensure that when we see those things happening for our audience during the presentation, we can actually help them out to also stay awake. So being intentional of what it is that we're looking for, and then once we see that type of behavior or that type of facial expression, how are we going to handle it? And then, of course, gestures. What gestures am I using? And ensuring that if I am using any emblems, that they are appropriate for where I am giving my presentation. And in my notes, I wrote be intentional, because I want to be intentional with the message that I bring across to my audience. So that was just one example, and that's for instance when we are giving presentations. But we can also utilize all of these in our sales conversations, in our romantic conversations, in an interview, right? So there's a very wide variety of different places where we can utilize the same table and think through how we want the interaction to go and how we can actually be the awesome communicator that we are. So on that intentionality trend that we are on, of course, our awareness intention slide. So thinking about the things that came into your awareness today during this lesson, there might be new things that you didn't know, or there might be things that you already knew about. What body language am I noticing more during my interactions? Because this is also a great way to see how people react to us. So looking at their body language, seeing how my being in that specific situation impacts their body language is also a good indication to me whether I'm communicating the way that I want to communicate or whether it's not quite hitting the mark. What facial expressions might I be noticing? And knowing about those micro facial expressions that sometimes we may not notice because they go past so fast. If there is a little something at the back that sort of says, oh, something just happened, It might be a micro expression that you noticed going over and going away. So just being a little bit more aware of those type of things during our interactions. And how can I use this information that I now have to actually have better communication with the people around me? And then, of course, like we did in our little table, how do I need to adjust my approach by what I'm observing from the people around me? So they're giving me little clues on how I'm communicating with them. Is it effective? Is it ineffective? Am I actually getting my point across the way that I want to? Or do I still need to work on a few things? And of course, what are they communicating back to me? And not only in words, but also in the way they stand, in the way they look at me. Is there things in there that maybe I need to take note of and change the way that I deliver my message, or change the way that I approach this specific person? So all of these things gives us wee little clues in how we can improve our communication with others by just looking at how they are interacting with our communication each time that we interact. And that brings us today to the end of our lesson on body language and facial expressions. And if you would like some more information, you can always contact me at mariska@journeytodiscover.com, or we can connect via LinkedIn.
Well done, Mariska. Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I always love the graphics and the visuals, and looking at those facial expressions and how people can interpret things in a way that we're not meaning them to be interpreted. So we have to be really mindful and thoughtful of what we're putting out there, including the fake smile like this. Fake smile.
Yes, including that fake smile.
And for anyone who wants to contact Mariska, I know she put up her information, but for people listening on the radio, you can contact her at journey2, that's the number 2, discover.com. And you can email her at Mariska, Mariska, at journey2discover.com. You can also go to our website, which is usaglobaltv.com. And you can go to Talking Heads. Her bio is there, as well as her first 6 lessons that she's presented. This is number 5, isn't it?
This is number 5. Yes,
wow.
It is.
Time goes by fast. Well, thank you so much. I know it's a lot of preparation that you have to do in order to be here, but we certainly appreciate your expertise and sharing your experience all the way from New Zealand. You know what? I love to say that. New Zealand, yay.
I know, you just love saying New Zealand.
You know why? Because if you look at a globe or a map, it's so far away from where I am. It just seems like, how can we possibly be communicating this easily? But yet we've been doing it for, 3 years now, 4 years? I don't even know.
We have. And I mean, I'm literally, my words, sorry. I am literally on the other side of the planet and a day ahead.
It's incredible.
And we are communicating. And if it wasn't for technology, we would not have been doing this.
Exactly correct. And we also want to thank Mariana, because we wouldn't have met if it weren't for her.
Yes, that
Mariana
is very true.
Yeah, from Goal Imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very grateful for Mariana every day, and the fact that you decided to join at the same time that I decided to join the class.
I know, we just hit it off. So for folks who don't know, we both enrolled in a life coaching certification program. And I know I did a lot of research before I decided to go on board. I even spoke to her on the phone, I think a couple of times. And you and I were in the class together, and I just really connected with you. And now you're my coach, the coach's coach.
Hey, we all need coaches. I have a coach too. So
Exactly.
actually, two coaches.
And I've had, at one time, I had six when I first started this business, because you need somebody, about marketing. That it's so many different things.
Yeah.
But anyway, another great lesson. I look forward to seeing you backstage.
Me too.
All
And
right.
thank you for having me on the show.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Nice work, and see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone who's watching on the live or the replay. If you can go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV, and you can click subscribe. You can watch all of our shows there. This week we have 22 shows, which is incredible. And you can also find the playlist for Talking Heads. You can go there at any time at your leisure, and you can watch the shows over and over again and continue to learn. That's what we're all about here at USA Global TV. It's true news. We want to bring you education, entertainment, and all kinds of programs from across the world. We have a new show starting tomorrow called Teach the Teacher, and it's all about bringing education into Africa. So we've got so many different topics, no politics and no religion. Okay. All right. Thank you again. We will be back tomorrow with another day of shows, and also back on Friday. Take care of yourselves. And again, thank you so much for watching USA Global TV. We appreciate your support.